close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're well, hope you're fine. My name's Karl Smith from the UK Hypnosis Academy, and tonight it gives me great pleasure to introduce Dominic Beirne, and he's going to be talking about EMDR. So I hope you're all ready for it. Good evening, Dominic. How are you? Oh, just lost his signal. So, guys, I think that he's just lost his signal. So I hope you can hear me well and fine. I hope you're all well. Well, I've just lost Dominic for a moment. There we go. So there's Dominic again. So, guys, I hope you're well, hope you're fine. We've got Dominic here. Hope you're well, hope you're fine. Dominic, you all right?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks, Carl.
Good. So good. So we're going to be talking about EMDR tonight. Dominic's going to take you through some of the fundamental basics about what it is, what it isn't, and some of the things about why we think it works, and and some of the stuff that goes behind it. But on the same token, we'll go along that as we go. I'll introduce Dominic in a moment, and he can tell us who he is and what he does, and what courses he offers. Like forever, I don't get anything for this. This is about pointing you in the right direction if you choose to take on these courses. If you want to visit Dominic's website, if you want to go to Dominic's website, it's hypnosis-nlp.co.uk, and go there, and there is an EMDR course there, roughly around 99 UK pounds. So guys, without further ado, let me just do some shout outs. Guys, I'm gonna have to apologize because I'm still in this croaky little hotel in Manchester, and I honestly thought that I was gonna have top quality internet connection, but it's quite apparent that it's not. So first off, I'm just going to say, Sarah Moore, thanks very much for subscribing to the channel. You're very welcome to be with us. Don't forget to get behind the scenes and check out. And don't forget, we have got our own specialist Facebook group as well that you can join. Subliminals for you. Hope you're well. Hope you're fine, buddy. Eric, hope you're well. Max, hope you're well. Jose, hope you're well. Where else we got here? James, hope you're well in Bulgaria. Funny that. Bulgaria's come up 3 times tonight. Where is he? Varga, something like that. Anyway, one of my friends, Rob the Groof, is currently over in, I'm trying to find it now. He's over in Bulgaria at the moment, watching my mighty football team take on another team. Where is it? Varga? I think you said it was Varga. Anyway, no worry about that now. Eric, hope you're well. Trevor, hope you're well. Carol, hope you're well. Simon, hope you're well, mate. Shane Swaney, hope you're well, my friend. Mario, hope you're well, hope you're fine. Jackie Brennan, hope you're well, hope you're fine. Aritna Nunna, how you getting on there, Eddie? How you getting on, my friend? Max, you all right, darling? In a minute. Jenny Armitage, hope you're well. Laura, hope you're well. How is the weather in Vegas? I'm not in Vegas, unfortunately, due to the fact of Mr. Biden wouldn't let me in. Jules, hope you're well, hope you're fine. David McHugh, hope you're well, hope you and your good lady are fine. Callie, I believe that is, from Institute of Hypnosis and Sexuality. Happy days. Lisa, hope you're well, hope you're fine over in California. Chris, hope you're well. Trance Works, hope you're well. Tracy Ryan, hope you're well. Jamesy Wigland, where are you, my friend? I hope you're well. Are you at Hypno Thoughts? Harold, I hope you're well. So, guys, if I have missed anyone, sincerely, Jenny, if I didn't say hello. But yeah, hopefully I've got everybody through. So, yes, unfortunately, Hypno Thoughts Live, which is the largest hypnosis convention in the world, unfortunately, does not have the Smithmeister for the first time ever. So, Marky, mate, hope you're well, hope you're fine. Hope you got my message the other day. I'm sponsoring the mighty Norwich again this season. So I've got Arsenal and Tottenham matches if you want to join me in my old fruit. And I've just been with Angelo because I'm in Manchester at the moment. Anyway, I'm on off that. So yes, so I'm missing Hypno Thoughts Live. It's the first time since it started in Las Vegas that I'm going to miss it. And friends, I'm telling you now that that if you've never been to HypnoThoughts Live, then you should go. If you're a hypnotist and you're serious about your career, you should go. I don't get any money for it from there. So guys, look, we're going to be talking about EMDR tonight. I'm qualified in EMDR, and thanks to Dominic that's sat there. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk to Dominic tonight about EMDR. We're going to talk about its origins. We're going to talk about how it's used, what it is, what it's not. We'll talk about some of the positives, and probably we might find out if there's any negatives from it. But mind you, that's the same as any therapeutic process, isn't it? But that's the case. So Dominic, it's great to have you on, my friend. And obviously we've been doing loads of stuff in the past, and we've spoken before, and we're probably mutually going to be doing some future stuff as well, but we'll talk about that later on. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you, Dominic, and about your past and about how you got into therapy, and then progress into what is EMDR for those people who aren't aware, and for those people, you know, that need to know a little bit more?
Okay, yeah, I got into hypnosis when I was about 15 years of age. I read a book on self-hypnosis, and I was fascinated by it. And back in those days, because I'm knocking on a bit now, with an old tape recorder with a microphone, and recorded a hypnotic script and the suggestion that was on it for being able to concentrate better and remember better. And I found it really, really good, certainly during my final years at school, to be able to remember and study better and concentrate better, and, you know, just hold on to information more easily. So that's where the seeds were planted. And then I went to college, did a course in business studies. And then when I finished that, I kind of worked a bit. And then I decided at that point, I wanted to get into hypnosis, hypnotherapy, what I wanted to do. And I went and did some professional training. The first person I trained with was Will Proudfoot up in Scarborough. I trained with Gil Boyne. Yeah. The late Gil Boyne I trained with.
Yeah.
Karl Summers, who was an Ericksonian hypnotist. And I did a lot of studying and training of Richie Bandler, John Gringler, Robert Dilts. So that's a bit about my background, how I got into hypnosis, hypnotherapy. And then I got introduced to EMDR. I mean, I read a book on it back in 89, 90. And again, was fascinated by that. And when I started doing my training, EMDR was introduced to me. So I went on and did some advanced training in EMDR. And I never looked back on that. It was something that totally blew me away. I had it done on myself, and it got rid of this thing that was going on in my head at the time very, very quickly. And so that's when I started incorporating it in my work as a therapist. And then in 1995, when I set up a school, I started training it as well, and never looked back. So that's a bit about my background, how I got into hypnosis, psychotherapy, psychology, and within all that, EMDR, you know, not necessarily in that order. But when I got into EMDR, it was back, as I said, back in the early 90s, and there weren't many EMDR practitioners around then. Very few, actually. So I'm not saying I was the first, but I certainly was one of the early people to start using it, to my knowledge, back then. And it's a great therapy. It's a great therapy that it can help people for all sorts of things. Initially, when it was put together, it was for post-traumatic stress, which is still mainly what it is used for, and phobias. But what I found, and what a lot of other people found over the years, that it actually can be used for all sorts of things, as well as post-traumatic stress. I mean, I use it a lot when I'm working with people for addictions. One of the model that I will incorporate within that when I'm working on addictions. So yeah, it's one of those things that I, to this day, still use probably 75% of the time at some point with my clients.
So do you want to go through some of the mechanics of what happens during an EMDR session, and then, you know, what's some of the science that may fall behind that? Why is EMDR? Why would you say EMDR is as successful as it can be in the way it works? Why does it work? And what would if I was a person coming to you now, and I wanted an EMDR session, what would I be? You know, what would be put in front of me? What would be the
Well, the way I would explain it is that whatever goes on in our life, we take it in. Whatever we see, hear, feel, smell, and taste, all our experiences are coded in. And some of it is deleted, some of it distorted, and then we make generalizations out of it. Okay, good and bad. Problem is when bad experiences happen is that with some people, and that's why, like you and me and all the other therapists out there are in work, it's because some of these traumas, experiences lock themselves in the nervous system. It's what I call an emotional blockage, and which they haven't been able to move on from. And then what happened then is, and then that could happen when they're in a young child, in their teens, even early adulthood. But what happened then in later in life, certain things trigger it off. You know, and the way I explain it to a client is it can be like icons on a desktop or apps on a phone. The moment you click on that icon, that program opened up. Or the moment you click on that app opens up. And it's the same with trauma and bad feelings that we have locked in us, that certain things will trigger them off. Or in NLP, there's certain anchors, we call them, that will trigger off those emotional response, those behaviors, those unwanted behaviors and feelings. And so I explain it as like it's an emotional blockage. It hasn't been processed yet in the way it should have been back then when it happened.
Yeah.
And because it hasn't been processed properly, it's locked itself in. And what happened then is, in some cases, not all cases, but a lot of cases, is as time goes on, other events that are similar to that will kind of, or things that remind them of it, will kind of link to that blockage. So to get a cluster of experiences, event that can lock itself in sometimes. And so what EMDR does, it fires off that healing process in the brain that should have been fired off back then. So you can get two people who'd had, let's say, a car accident. Okay, let's say Bob and Harry go out in the morning. They're both involved in a car accident. They're both okay. The following morning, Bob gets up, gets in his new car, and starts to go to work absolutely fine. Harry, however, gets up, has his breakfast, gets into his new car, starts the engine, and has the full-blown panic attack. They both had the same experience, but they both processed it differently. Bob processed it in a way that the way the brain should have processed it, where Harry, for whatever reason, didn't. So that event, that trauma, locked itself in. So now the car becomes the association now to that, or driving becomes the association to that panic attack, that trauma. It locked itself in. So what EMDR did, it fired off the neurons in the brain, that healing process that should have happened naturally. It fired that off in order for them to reprocess it in a healthy way. And it's a bit like those people that know about TA, transactional analysis. It's almost like once they've been through EMDR, it changed their perspective. It sees things from if you like, from an adult perspective. So it kind of, or in NLP terms, the way I like to phrase it is it reframed it. Gives it a new frame. So that's really what EMDR is. It's I mean, there's a lot more to it, but if I'm going to talk about, I'll be here all night going on about it. But that's how I explain it to a client. Yeah.
So obviously I've read many different backgrounds, but it was Francine Shapiro that gave birth to the EMDR model, let's say, and you know, what was her journey into that?
Well, there's many different stories, right? And the one I was taught, and one I think I've read in a book as well, is that she was diagnosed, and don't quote me on the complete, because there are many different stories for this, that she was diagnosed, I think, with cancer.
Yep.
I think. And she went into a state of shock, disbelief, fear is the key word. And while she was walking home, apparently, from being given this diagnosis, she was sat in, I think it was the Red Forest, somewhere in America, and as she was sat there, she was just looking at the trees. It was a bit of a windy day, and the trees, the branches were moving, and she was following them with her eyes. And suddenly, this kind of fear seemed to go. And because she's a psychologist herself, she was curious by this and started talking to her colleagues about it. The connection they made, it was something to do with the movement of the eyes. And so they continued doing more research into it, where they eventually started working with people from the Vietnam, soldiers from the Vietnam who were suffering from post-traumatic stress. And they were getting incredible results in helping them overcome it. So that is where Roundabout was born back in 1987. This is where it all started off. I think you've frozen up, Karl. You there? I can't hear you.
Sorry, folks, if that just dropped out. It's Manchester's lovely internet connection. Okay. Yeah, so I think everyone still heard you. Yeah, so yeah, Francie Shapiro, sorry.
So Francie Pierre was she was the one that, if you like, discovered it and put it together, and that's when it was born,
Really?
1987. So it's still not that old if you think about it.
Yeah. So
30 years old. That's all it is. So,
guys, just for those that are watching, normally I do an hour, but because of where I am, I'm working remotely today. So the internet is completely out of my hands. So we're probably only going to do half an hour today, but even still, there's enough information for you to chew over, to go over today and stuff like that. If you want to, and you want to learn more, by the way, just go to the website below, and Dominic will be able to take you through the course. But I sat and did completed your course, Dominic, you know, very comprehensive all the way from start to finish with the historical values and why we do EMDR and stuff. But do you want to explain what the course content is for those people that are interested in doing it online or in person with you? What would they gain from it? What are you going to learn and what are you going to gain?
Yeah, well, you get a bit of the theory, the background of the EMDR. I talk about one case history of mine, which I'll talk about in a moment, actually.
Yeah.
So I'll go into the history of it, the background of it. I break all the steps down for the EMDR, and then people pair up and they start to practice each step of the 8-phase process for EMDR. So you get in the home study course, online course, you get the theory. In video one, you get the theory of it from the late Jackie Curry, sadly no longer with us. She's explaining the theory of it, the background of it. That video one, and then the second video is me working with a real life client over 2 sessions with her, where I'm working with a presenting issue that she got, and as I'm doing the EMDR with her, I'm breaking it down and talking to the camera, the viewer, and explaining what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. It comes with a very comprehensive online manual as well. So everything's broken down into how it should be. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, and then people get so here's a question. We've had this conversation before, but EMDR is not regulated, is it?
It's self-governing bodied. So it's self-governing body.
It's self-governing. So the qualification that people get with you is still a viable qualification that they can get insurance with and go away and practice with.
Yeah.
That was my point, because some people may ask, because there was this shroud, wasn't there, that you had to be a medical physician, doctor, to be involved in the EMDR gang. But I think that was more of a status thing for an organization or a self-governed governing body that was made for itself.
That's their criteria for it.
But there's no necessity to be a doctor or to be a physician or nurse or anything like that. No, it's the same as in hypnosis and everything like that, isn't it? It's the same as that's it there. So, so they do the course, then they get a qualification at the very end of it,
Qualification, to say that they've completed the course, and which means that they can then go out and utilize it within their work, And one thing I do say though is, ideally, people with some kind of mental health background, that can be a hypnotherapist, an NLP practitioner, a psychotherapist of some sort. Someone got some that background already. Ideally, they're the people I want doing this course, because it is a very powerful and effective model. But it's also a very simplistic model once you know it.
So here's a question for you. There's one just come in. It's Carla. She's from Hong Kong. I believe she might have done. She's done this, but she's actually over in my end of the woods at the moment. So so we got this. So I still failed to see why the left and the right hemispheric cross-lateral midline cross activating the central laterally and integrating L&R dominance isn't actively known. This is the L&R cross. Does that make sense?
No, not really. No, it's not actually. I'm not really understanding. Is it a question or is it a statement she's making?
Sorry about that, guys. I'm to the elements here in Manchester, so I have to apologise for that. Do you want to answer that question? Unless you want to just expand on that, Carla. Can you read that, Dominic?
Yeah, I can read it.
I'll wait for her to come back to it. Guys, just a quick one as well. Some people have said that the link that I posted earlier doesn't work. Please use the link below and look for the EMDR course and the other courses that Dominic offers as well.
The online one comes on the online courses, and click on CBDs, and then it's EMDR for emotional well-being, and click on that, and you can then register and sign up from there.
Right. There we go. So I've just done that one. Sarah, sorry about that. That must have been just a technical failure earlier on my part, just doing that. So guys, you can, at the end of the day, because you know what I'm like with I love everything to run smoothly, but to be quite honest, I'm getting slightly freaking irritated by Manchester and its by this internet connection in this lovely hotel without any aircon in. Anyway, but that's a different story. So guys, please use this link if you want to contact Dominic, and there's any questions you want to pose re EMDR or any of his training, please go to that there. Here we go. Are there any issues with it where EMDR is not the best choice due to the level of trauma? Now, Laura, on that, what I tend to teach, and I'll let Dominic mention in a moment, is that we look for the contraindications. So contraindicated things like bipolar, schizophrenia, narcolepsy, epilepsy. There is a whole lesson on that on my channel, but there are things that you need to be aware of that not in EMDR or any therapy, there are contraindications. And I don't know what your view is on what your teachings are on that, Dominic, but
absolutely.
There are certain
I totally agree. And actually, in the manual and on the course, we talk about the things where we should approach it with caution. I'm not saying don't do it, but with caution. And one of them being if somebody is pregnant. Well, if someone's heavily pregnant, I won't do any type of intense therapy, whether it's EMDR, regression therapy, whatever, with them, because it can it can affect the baby worse. If they're going through a very traumatic point in the therapy session, it could well have an effect on the baby. And there's a lot of evidence to prove that. So that's where I would say no, if you like. Once I had the baby, then I will happily work with them. That's one of the things. The other thing is they say about a drug or alcohol dependent. Well, again, approach with caution. I wouldn't work with somebody who's drugged out of their brains or have been drinking and basically very drunk. I wouldn't work with them. Then again, I wouldn't do any type of therapy with them. However, as I said at the beginning, one of the things I do work with a lot with EMDR is addictions. I find it to be very, very, very beneficial as part of a package of working with people with addictions.
So I mean, that comes down to contraindications as well. We teach that, and I think if you go back to those people that are interested, that's the famous night that Karl had his second jab and started to deteriorate quite quickly during the live session. But if you go to my live sessions, I believe that was Laura, is that there is a whole lesson on my YouTube channel about contraindications. Also, as well, if you go look at all right, I'll come back to that in a moment. But contraindications, stuff like that. Let me just get a couple of these.
It's all about common sense. If you, the therapist, don't feel comfortable working with this person, then you got to follow that inner feeling. You know what I mean? So it's weighing up the situation. Could every client different? So again, I always say to all my students, whether they're doing my EMDR course or my hypnotherapy courses, if it didn't feel right, don't do it.
Absolutely.
Bear in mind. Simple as that.
So Chris has just asked a question. I'll come to you in a moment, Laura. There are several other eye movement therapies, e.g. eye movement integration. Has Dominic examined any of these options before? Have you ever looked into any other eye movement type material before?
I have looked at them. They seem to cross over. They have a crossover. But EMDR is the one that I stick with, the one I feel, for me, as a therapist, that's the one I feel most comfortable in using. And I, from my experience of working with clients, seems to be the most effective, from my experience.
Okay, cool. Another question came in. Has EMDR ever been used on a split brain individuals? Just you, Stevie, to come up with a question like that, where the corpus callosum has been damaged or severed in any way?
Okay, this is one of the things that they say approach with caution. If someone got severe brain damage of some sort, or so my experience, no, I'd never have worked with anyone like that. However, if I may go into a quick story about a young girl I worked with back in 2006. I've been given permission by her parents right back then to use her name in any of my articles or training, whatever. Her name was Rachel anyway, and she had glandular fever, where she was very, very poorly. And she recovered from that. But when she recovered, everything closed down. She couldn't feed herself anymore. She couldn't go to the toilet anymore. She couldn't communicate anymore. She was like somebody that's been in a severe car accident and has severe brain damage. That's how her father, when she brought her into to me, had to carry her in. And when she sat there, she sat like that, dribbling from the side of her mouth. So, in modern term, we call it, I think, ME, but she's been to see, I think her mother said, 4 child psychologists and 2 child psychiatrists. And they all said in front of her, which I thought was outrageous, they all said, there's nothing we can do for her. She's got to live with this. So the first thing I said was, I can help her. where her mother broke down in tears because I was the first person to say that. I'll be honest with you, in the back of my head, I had a voice saying, shit, how am I going to deal with this? But part of me just knew I've got to help this little girl. So cut a long story short, she couldn't look at me. She couldn't focus her attention on me or anything like that because the condition she was in. I started tapping her knees from left to right. Her parents were there with their permission. I started tapping left to right. And this is another way of doing EMDR. It's not just about the eye movement. You can do tapping from left to right or sound from left to right as well. I started tapping knee from left to right. When I did it, must have been doing it for about 10 minutes. When suddenly she cried her little heart out. And I mean, really, really cried. The first time she cried for 18 months. By the way, she's been in this condition for 18 months now. Haven't even been to school, obviously. So talking about EMDR, all the steps that you have to set up to get to step 4, the desensitization part, I couldn't do. So I just went straight in and started doing it. Cut a long story short, by session 7 weeks later, she was back at school. Even after week 3, 4 of coming to see me, she was talking again. She's falling out with her brother and sister. She wanted triplets. She's riding her bike again. Her life was literally transformed in 3 or 4 weeks. By session 7, she was back at school. And her mother and father keep in contact with me. She's just finished university now, the daughter have, and doing great, So that for me was one of the most rewarding therapies I'd ever done, on a personal level. It was really, really, really rewarding. Because what we had there was somebody who was completely broken, that the system had given up on. The so-called experts out there had given up on her, and this showed the power of EMDR. Even though I couldn't set up the first 3 steps of the 8-phase process with her. I just went straight into descent. I'll be honest, I did do some hypnosis with her as well at the end of each session, which I do with all my clients, for ego strengthening, etc., etc. But that was it. After 7 sessions, she was back at school. She was functioning again as a normal 9-year-old bright child. And so this goes to the point where, sometimes you can't plan ahead. Too many people, in my opinion, get caught up in mindset of you've got to do it this way. Boom, 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 boom. Well, the human mind, the human brain is so unique for all of us that's not always the case. Sometimes you just got to go in the middle. You got to sometimes think out of the box, and do things just on that spur, that moment, what feels right. And that there was a classic example of where nothing was set up. It was just went straight into tapping, doing EMDR with tapping. That unblocked whatever it was. And to this day, she didn't know. I don't know what that was. The parents don't know.
So it's quite interesting, actually, because one of the questions a moment ago is about a condition with uncontrolled eye movements and stuff. So you wouldn't actually use the eyes; you'd actually go for another part of the anatomy to do the left and right hemisphere and work and stuff like that.
Right. So can you repeat the question?
So one of the questions a moment ago is about eye conditions, about having a condition with uncontrolled eye movement.
Right,
so I take it, with that scenario there, you would then not bother with utilising the eyes. You would
I wouldn't utilise. I would go into tapping, or it's probably tapping from left to right, as they focus on the initial problem, the target, with whatever we set up at the beginning.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. I mean, and you talk about epilepsy. There have been evidence out there that actually EMDR, the eye movement, can actually prevent epilepsy.
All right.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that people say you shouldn't hypnotize someone with epilepsy. In my opinion, that's totally incorrect. I hypnotize
Yeah,
many people with epilepsy.
Yeah.
As long as you know how to deal with it, if they go into having epilepsy fit, as long as one knows how to deal with it, basically put them on their side, make sure they don't swallow their tongue, then, in my opinion, it's okay to work with them.
Brilliant. Happy days. Well, I'm just going to say thanks very much. Obviously, I'm sitting here on tenterhooks whilst in Manchester, hoping that the internet survives just another moment so we can get squeezed more out of Dominic. But guys, like I mentioned a minute ago, what I'd like you to do is, first off, I'm going to start wrapping things up here. Levi, you're a bastard. That's all I'm going to say. And for everybody that's a hypnotist, hypnotherapist in Europe, in Australia, or anywhere else, where else that can't get to HypnoThoughts at the moment, I hope you fall in the pool later on. Anyway, that's a lovely story for you. Hopefully give you some EMDR to get over that. Anyway, he's sat by the pool at the moment, just relaxing while we're here. If you didn't know Levi, by the way, there is actually a webcam. If you go to the Orleans Hotel website, you can actually watch on there. So I was on there earlier, but I didn't see your skinny little body. But no, guys, I want to say thanks very much tonight for everything that we've done there. Just want to catch this there. All this healing through hypnotherapy is nothing more than amazing. Have you heard of quantum healing? Yeah, QHT, Dolores Cannon. Yeah, she passed away a few years ago now, and her daughter took over. But it's technically hypnosis. They're all forms of hypnosis, but QHT is a similar thing as well. But nice one, Tracy. But yeah, so guys, I'm going to say that, guys, like I said a little while ago, thanks very much. And look, if I've missed questions, you'll have to believe, you know what I'm like. I love making sure these run smoothly, and I don't want to sit here and go, the bloody internet's gone again. So Dominic, I want to say thank you very much, guys. The link that I may have posted earlier may have picked up another little thing that's bounced it off of Dominic's website. But if you go to that one below, you'll be able to see the EMDR course there. Also, as well, me and Dominic are talking about live streaming a course. On what date was it you were thinking of?
The 16th of October.
16th of October. We're thinking about live streaming a course. If you're interested in doing that, if you're interested in coming on the live stream or being in person at the course in UK, please contact Dominic initially, but then I will start to put it out as well. But if you can give the numbers to Dominic on people that would be interested in either attending an EMDR course, either in person or streaming, let Dominic know at that website there. So once again, Dominic, thanks very much, guys. It's much pleasure. Thanks very much for tonight. I know it's a short one, but the internet's really letting me down on this side here, and I you know what I like to do. I'd rather do a short one that's been powerful enough for you. Don't forget, guys, you can all qualify in EMDR as long as you have a background knowledge. That's the main thing, and always remember safety. And like Dominic says in his course as well, there's the contraindications. It goes through all that type of stuff as well. So thanks very much, guys, and I look forward to seeing you soon. I'm going to make a decision tomorrow if I can get an internet lead for the room to do the live tomorrow, but I will update you tomorrow morning on that. But Dominic, thank you once again, guys. Contact Dominic below. It's been a pleasure again, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And it should be Sir Bobby Burns, dependent on my internet connection. But guys, thanks very much. Don't forget, guys, go out there, go practice. And when you finish practicing, practice some more. Lovely jobbly. Thanks, guys. All the best, and I'll see you soon. You take care, and thanks, Dominic. I'll stay on, Dom.